lost media can come in many forms, and commercials are some of the most challenging to research and find. So if you know any of the ones I'm about to talk about, then let me know in the comments. Maybe you even have a copy on some old VHS or something. Let's go. This first one was alerted to me by some viewer and email comments. So shout out to Andrew there. He talks about this 80s Roller City roller skating rink commercial that features none other than Humphrey B. Bear. According to this viewer slash commenter, they remembered seeing this ad on TV and they had Humphrey skating through a plastic tunnel, and the tagline of the ad was, "Get your feet on wheels so you can really roller skate roller city." Now these viewers looked everywhere but they can't seem to find it, and it's especially challenging now since Roller City does appear to be defunct with their last site closing in 2021. And I know the idea of Humphrey B. Bear getting on top of some roller skates seems a little absurd. I mean, you're talking about a bear here, or at least someone in a bear costume. But I have at least found some evidence that Humphrey has done this before. You can find some footage on Facebook of him hitting the ice, so he's at least done some roller skating. And I was also able to find this old photo from the late 1960s that shows him striking a pose while skating. So is it really out of the question that Humphrey B. Bear could have been appearing in roller skating rink ads at some point during the 80s? Now this is an ad that I personally remember seeing, and there is actually some corroborating evidence to suggest that it did in fact air, and definitely existed. Now a lot of Australians would know that Guy was the first winner of Australian Idol, but it wasn't the first singing competition that Guy took part in. In 2002 he was involved in the Pilot Pen Star Search, which as you could probably tell was a singing competition run by the Pilot Pen Company. The winner would go on to get a bunch of the best tech of the early 2000s, and their song would be recorded, and I also believe they would get a slot on Video Hits. Guy would go on to win this singing competition with his song No More, but there were two other finalists, Dior's League and Natalie Pearson, and all three of them featured in an ad encouraging people to vote for them. And though the evidence is thin, there are still some traces of it online. If you go to the Pilot Pen page in the Internet Archive and do a bit of clicking around a bit in the early 2000s, you can actually find some information about the singing competition, including how Guy won with over 50% of the total vote. There's also some posts on the Big Footy forum made in 2003 when Guy was competing on Australian Idol, where the users remember seeing that ad too. There's also some stuff on the Board of Studies website. And while you can find Guy's song No More and it's been uploaded online since then, the ad itself seems to have vanished. As a bit of a side note, I tried to look up the other two competition entrants in the Pilot Pen comp, Natalie and Dior's League. Natalie does have some information about her, but I could not find anything about Dior's League beyond the Pilot Pen site archive. So if you know anything about them at all, then please get in touch, because out of everything, that's probably going to drive me mad the most, even more than whether this ad still exists anywhere. While making this video, I also took a look to Reddit to see if there was any interesting ads there, and yeah, I did find some. There is a anti-smoking PSA that aired once again in Victoria in 2017 to 2019, according to Reddit user OwnTomatillo5920. There was apparently a woman in bed who's connected to an oxygen machine and she's struggling to breathe and gets checked on by somebody, and that's about all. Interesting enough, another Redditor was able to find another version of the ad that was outside of Victoria, but this one had different actors and a different setting. So it seems like they localized these ads for some reason back in the day. And another quick mention of a Reddit ad where Redditor OKBrick4339 was looking for a Coca-Cola radio ad of all things. So it's interesting to hear about audio only ads from my perspective anyway. They claim this ad was for Coca-Cola and played on stations like Triple M, Fox FM and others back in the day. There's two young men that have a conversation and one of them has some chips and brings them to them, and the other asks if they also brought a Coke. And when the friend says they forgot to buy the Coke, they gave these chips to the seagulls because they felt they couldn't have chips without Coke. And next you hear apparently a frustrated seagull says, "Chips, no Coke, chips, no Coke." I think it's going to be a lot harder to find this one if it's still out there anymore. You're going to have people that either remember this ad or have taped FM radio for whatever reason and just happen to include that ad. I'd be really curious if anyone else remembers it, so please get in touch, just like with all the other commercials I've mentioned here. This final one is about a confectionery item that has a bit of a cult following, you might say, but it doesn't have a lot of advertisements. I'm talking about the humble Zappos candy. I first became aware of this ad through Redditor Choniat, who you might remember from my coverage of the Chatswood song, which is still being looked for, by the way. This ad is set in a school with a couple of students and a 30-year-old teacher with red hair. The teacher kinda looks like a combination of Bobby from King of the Hill and Carrot Top. I'll let Choniat describe exactly what the ad entails.
It starts with the teacher explaining the rules of the class and what is essentially banned. One of these rules is having no chewing gum in class. As he says this, the girl decides to stealthily take out a packet of Zappos from her skirt pocket, to which the teacher spots her and screams in a nasally fashion, "No chewing gum!" As he does this, the camera quickly zooms in on his face that is full of anger and dismay. And as a result, cut shot goes to a zoom in of the girl holding up the packet of Zappos in her left hand while seated at her desk, and she responds softly and calmly with the lines, "It's not chewing gum, sir, it's Zappos." To which she opens up the packet of Zappos, gives a sour lolly, or throws a sour lolly into the mouth of the teacher, who eats it, and his head convulses as if, an explosion has happened in his mouth. His eyes bulge with a bloodshot appearance of his eyes. And once this happens, in a delirious state, he responds by saying, "Oh, they are Zappo-y." And we see a cut of the entire class laughing. And the commercial closes with a whole series of flavor options available with the Zappos range. And that's all I can remember of the commercial.
Now, it's worth pointing out that years later, Choniat was trying to find this ad and even doubted it existed. But after speaking to some friends and others, she confirms that it was a thing, or at least other people remembered it too. And while searching for it, she did uncover one Zappos ad that had a vaguely similar idea behind it, but this particular ad, which I'm showing on screen right now, is in 2D, whereas the Zappos ad that Choniat particularly remembers with the exploding head was in 3D. And it was rendered in a soft cell animation style. Sort of like a cross between the Iron Man Armored Adventures show and the Family Guy video game. Oh wow, I've finally finished this thing. Thank you so much for sticking around. Before I finish up, I'll quickly mention some other honourable mention ads that I forgot to include earlier. There is apparently a 1990s Calder Park Demolition Derby ad that might feature Gus Mercurio dressed as Einstein. And there's also apparently another Gus Mercurio ad, except it's a real estate ad where he says phrases like "the big ranch" and "you want it again okay." According to my viewer Andrew, it was quite the theme back in the day. And again, if you've seen these ads or any of the others I've mentioned in this video, or you have some that you've been struggling to find for years yourself, then let me know in the comments please. This will probably be my last upload of 2025, but I think I'm going to have some much better stuff next year. And I hope you stay around with me and enjoy it. Anyway, thank you for watching and listening, and take care.